Hello, dear candidates, and welcome to the GCE Math Panel Online. I am Dr. Miles, your host, and this paper is Intermediate Level, Paper 2, Section A, 2020. All right, so the first question reads, a quarter of 14 divided by 3/4 of 7. In this particular question, the knowledge of BODMAS is required. So the first thing to do is 14 divided by 3/4. And 14 divided by 3/4 is the same as 14 times the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4 on 3, and that gives us 56 on 3. The next step is to replace at this exact position 14 divided by 3/4 by this value, and the off are considered as multiplication. And when we simplify, we have 4 here, 1, and you have 4 into 56, 14 times. Therefore, you have 1 times 14 times 7, which is 98 on 3. That's the solution. Take note very much, dear students, that you should not spend most of your time on questions that waste time. Because there are some questions that they can give at the beginning which take a lot of time, and at the end, you will spend your time and you will not even answer these questions. Question number 2, we have, given the real number b equals that, express b in the form a root 2. To express this number in the form a root 2, and the b part of the question is saying that if root 3 lies in that interval and root 2 in that interval, write in a similar manner the bounds within which the number root 8 root 6 lies, and state the amplitude and the bounds to the nearest 1,000. So in this question, we begin with them b equals root 98 minus root 128 plus 3 root 50. So the first thing, as we have just said, is to simplify the roots. And this will give us, simplifying the roots, we will have root 98 is the same as the square number in 98 is 49, so that will give us b to be equal to 7 times root 98 is the same as root 49 times root 2, root 49 times root 2. Now minus 7. Root 128 is the same as root 64 times root 2, then plus 3, and root 50 is the same as root 25 times root 2. The next step, we know root 49 is the same as 7, so we'll have 7 root 2 minus 7 root 64 is 8, so that gives us 8 root 2 times 8 root 2 plus 3, and root 25 is 5, and that gives 5 root 2. So this will give us 49 root 2 minus 56 root 2 plus 15 root 2. And that number will be equal to 8 root 2. So we have expressed it in the form a root 2. Another way to ask this question would have been to look for the number a, or to look for the value of a, and that will give us 8. The b part of the equation as well, we have 8 root 6. And we know that since you can express root 6 as root 2 times root 3, this number can be written as 8 root 2 root 3. So this number lies in the interval of, so firstly, we have to multiply the lower bound of 8 and the upper bound of 8 by 8. Considering 8, normally 8 will be equal to 8 in both bounds. Now, the next thing, we multiply this 8 by the lower bound of 2, which is 1.414, and multiply by the lower bound of 3, which is 1.732. We do the same thing for the upper bound. We multiply 8 by the upper bound of 2, which is 1.415, and the upper bound of 3, which is 1.733. All right, let's know this is 1.415 here, and this is 1.733. All right, so when we simplify this, we will have 19.592 for the lower bound and 19.618 for the upper bound. Subtracting these bounds, we have a value of 0.026. All right, the next question, question 3 reads, um, a polynomial function is defined by g of x equals x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9 to evaluate g of minus 3. So g of minus 3 will be equal to substituting minus 3 in that function, which is minus 3 to the power 3 plus minus 3 squared minus 9 into minus 3 minus 9. And this gives us minus 27 plus 9 plus 27 minus 9. And the value is 0. And when this value is equal to 0, what does this tell us? This tells us that x equals 3 is a root of this polynomial. It equally tells us that x plus 3, not minus 3, x plus 3 is a factor of this polynomial. So that's a g of 3 giving us 0. And the b part says if you write g of x in the form x plus 3 into x squared plus ax plus b. As you can see, x plus 3 is the factor as we just mentioned. So let's express this number. This can be done actually in two ways. We can either do long division, or we can decide to expand and compare the coefficients. Let us start by looking at long division. So long division, we have a function here which is x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9 divided by this x plus 3. Since the value is already known, even if it was not given, we would know that it's x plus 3. So divided by x plus 3. So x cubed, this x cubed here, divided by x gives us a value of x squared, which we write here. Now this x squared times this x here will give us x cubed. This x squared times plus 3 will equally give us plus 3x squared. We now subtract. We subtract this from x cubed plus x squared. So when we subtract, have x cubed minus x cubed, that will give us 0. And x squared minus 3x squared will give us minus 2x squared. We bring down this minus 9. Now this number here, minus 2x squared divided by this x here, will give us minus 2x. This minus 2x times x will give us minus 2x squared. Minus 2x times plus 3 will give us minus 6. We subtract as well. Subtracting minus 2x squared minus 2x squared is 0. Minus 9x minus 6x will give us minus 3x. We bring down this 9 and we'll have minus 9. So minus 3 divided by this x here will give us minus 3. Minus 3 times x minus 3x minus 3 times plus 3 gives us minus 9. When you subtract now, the remainder will be 0. So therefore means we can write a g of x as x plus 3 into x squared minus 2x minus 3. So we have expressed in this form. So in this form, our a is this minus 2 and our b is minus 3. Now we are required to solve the equation x plus 3 into x minus 1, x minus 3 should be less than 0. Note that they have completely factorized this middle term. They have factorized. When you factorize, you have those three terms. All right, one important thing about factorization is this factorization can equally be done in two ways. So I'll explain how it can be done. This solving for this g of x is less than 0 can be done in two ways, just as expressing that function of that form can be done in two ways. I'll give this a second alternative, or this alternative method. So normally the roots of this g of x being less than, strictly less than 0 here, you have, if you solve this one, x plus 3 is equal to 0, you have x to be equal to minus 3. If you equate x minus 1 to 0, you will have x to be equal to 1, and the same with x minus 3, you have x equals 3. So the three values that we have, you have minus 3 here, 1 here, and 3 here at this position. 1 and 3 at that position. So, but these are inequalities. We don't solve them like equations. If we solve it as an equation, it will be wrong. So why have we drawn this normal line? We want to test this region, the region below minus 3. To also test for the sign in this region between minus 3 and 1. And we also test the sign in this region as well as the region above 3. So let us start by testing this region where x is strictly less than minus 3. So if you take any number less than minus 3 and put in this function here, let's take something like minus 5. So minus 5 plus 3 is a negative number. Minus 5 minus 1 is negative, and minus 5 minus 3 is negative. So negative times negative times negative give us a negative value here. So it gives us negative. Now in the region between and minus 3 and 1, let us take 0, so it will be easier. If you put 0, you can even use this function here. If you put 0 here, 0 plus 3 is 3, which is positive. And then now 0 here will just give us negative. So positive times negative will give us positive times negative will give us 0. I think 0 might not be a very good value. Let's take a minus 1. Minus 1 plus 3 give us a positive number, then minus 1 squared plus 1 plus, let's see, I think I have something here in this signs. So below here we have, normally we have a negative number, and here we have 0 in this particular case, giving us, I think, negative here, negative actually, negative, and between 1 and 3, let's take 2. So this number here will be positive. 2 times 2, 4, minus 4, 0. So here will be negative. Here will be negative. And then above 3, we take a number greater than 3. Let's take 4, for example. This one will be positive. 4 minus 1 positive. 4 minus 3 positive. So here it will equally be positive. Above 3, it's positive. Okay. So now when we compare these regions, we see that which of the regions are negative. We have below minus 3 and between 1 and 3. And an inequality wants that the number should be negative or should be less than 0. So this region is satisfied. This one that is negative 3, and this one is equally satisfied. So therefore means our solution will be given at x an element from negative infinity to minus 3 and from 1 to 3, boundaries not being included. All right. Now, another way that we can look at this particular function is, let me give an alternative solution. So you can expand g of x from what has been given here. When you expand, you have g of x to be equal to x cubed plus ax squared plus bx plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 3b's. And when you bring like terms together, we'll have that. And you can now equate these coefficients with that of g of x, which was given in the equation, which is x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9. And from here, when we compare these coefficients, we will see that the coefficient of x squared is 1, which is equal to a plus 3. So a plus 3 should be equal to 1, and a will be equal to minus 2. Similarly, we see that 3b is equal to minus 9. 3b is equal to minus 9, and that will give us b to have a value of minus 3. And now equally to solve that g of x strictly less than 0, we can look at these different intervals that we discussed about here. X is less than minus 3, x lies between minus 3 and 1, x lies between 1 and 3, and x is greater than 3. So in this particular region here, we consider this function x plus 3. If you take a value less than minus 3, for example, minus 4, minus 4 plus 3 give us a negative number here, and minus negative number. Um, Minus 4 minus 1 give us a negative number. Minus 4 minus 3 equals to give us a negative number. So negative times negative times negative is equal to negative. Now, between minus 3 and 1, if you take a number that is, for example, minus 2 plus 3 gives us a number here that is positive. Minus 2 minus 1 is negative. Minus 2 minus 3 is negative. So positive times negative gives us a number that is positive. Just like here, it's that in this region, it is actually positive, and it corresponds to what you have here. This one is negative and corresponds to this one. Okay, now in this region between 1 and 3, you can take 2 and fit here, here, and here. So when we put 2 plus 3, you give us a positive number 5. 2 minus 1 is positive. 2 minus 3 is negative. So positive times negative gives us a negative number. And therefore, a number that is greater than 3 here, for example, 4, when you fit here, 4 plus 3 is 7 positive. 4 minus 1 is 3 positive, and 4 minus 3 is positive. So positive times positive give us positive. So we have the same results as we have here. So our x will be an element from negative infinity to minus 3 from below, and 1 from above to 3 from below. Okay. Now the next question number 4 reads, given that x equals 1 is a root of x squared plus kx minus 5, calculate the value of k and write f of x completely. So if x equals 1 is a root, it means that f of 1 will give us 0. So a root implies that f of 1 will be equal to 0. So let us look for f of 1 and equal to 0. So f of 1 will be equal to 1 squared plus k times 1 minus 5. That will be equal to 0. So that will give us 1 plus k minus 5 equals 0, and k will be equal to 5 minus 1, which is 4. Now solve R. Solve in the set of real numbers the equation f of x equals 0. So now that I know the value of k, I'll just substitute k by that value and equate to 0 and solve that quadratic. So you can solve using the quadratic formula. You can equally solve by factorization. So I would like to factorize. I will open 2 brackets. In this first bracket, I'll put x. In the second one, I'll put x. So I have x in the first one and x in the second one. Now, the coefficient of x squared is 1, and this constant term here is minus 5. So I want to look for 2 numbers. 1 times minus 5 is minus 5. So I want to look for 2 factors of minus 5, that when I multiply, I will have minus 5. And what will those 2 factors be? The possible factors are, for minus 5, you have minus 1 and minus 5. And you equally have, okay, minus 1 and plus 5 rather. And you equally have plus 1 and minus 5. So which of these factors, when I multiply each of them, I'll have minus 5. But which one should I add to have plus 4? So when I add this one, I'll have plus 4. So my correct set of factors are, you have minus 1 and plus 5. So those are the values I'm going to put in this bracket here. Minus 1 and plus 5. So I'll have minus 5 So minus 1 and plus 5 rather. Well, I think we shall left out this. So minus 1 and plus 5. So when you solve for this, x plus 1, x minus 5, x plus 1 is equal to 0. We'll have x minus 5 to be equal to 0, or x plus 1 to be equal to 0. So you can see how this issue minus here, and so x plus 5 is equal to 0, x minus 1 equals 0, and this gives us x to be equal to minus 5, or x to be equal to plus 1. X equals minus 5, or x to be equal to plus 1. Okay, let us look at the next question. So you can equally use the quadratic formula for this question. Oh, the guide prepared. All right, question 5. To produce fruit juice or fruit punch during a practical class, one third liters of pawpaw juice, 3/4 liters of pineapple juice, 5 and 6 liters of orange juice, and a half liter of carrot juice were used by the home economics department of a certain school. If half liters of punch is sold as 1,200 francs, how much money did the department realize on the sales of punch? So to produce fruit juice during practical class, normally, when you add this pawpaw, which is a 1/3 liters, to pineapples, to orange, to carrots, and so on, these fractions of these liters will add up to give us the actual number of liters that we'll have at the end. So the first thing is to do addition of the fractions, and you have the q liters of juice will be a half plus 3/4 plus 5 and 6 plus a half, and that will give us, looking at it for the LCM, we'll have 12. 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. Now 12 divided by 4 times 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3 times 3. 9 plus 12 divided by 6, 2 times 5, give us a value of 10. Then 12 divided by 2 is 6 times 1, which is 6. So when you add all of these, we'll have 31 on 12 liters. You can further simplify it to have 2 and 2 and 7 on 12 liters. Now this is a total number of liters that will be produced, or that results when you add all of these fractions of these different components. The question tells us that half a liter of this is sold for 1,200. So half liter equals 1,200 francs. So now, what will be the cost of 31 on 12 liters? 31 on 12 liters will be equal to, let us call it x. From here, you can cross multiply. You cross multiply this 31 on 12 liters times 1,200 divided by this half liter. So x will be equal to that. And when you simplify, you have 6,200 francs. So that's the amount that the home economics department realized. Home economics, because they provide us with food at times to school. All right, question number 6. Solve the set of real numbers. The first one is an equation. The second one is an inequality. So the equation, the first thing to do is just to cross multiply, or simple proportion. All right, so we have this. So we just have to cross multiply. When we cross multiply, we'll have 3 times 2x minus 3 to be equal to 2 times equal to 2 times 2x minus 3. So open out the brackets, we'll have 3x minus 9 to be equal to 4x minus 6. Bringing like terms together, this like term, bringing like terms together, we'll have 3x minus 4x give us um, minus x to be equal to minus 6 plus 9, which is 3. But we are not solving for minus x. We are actually looking for x. So we either multiply all through by minus 1 or divide both sides by minus 1. And that gives us a value of x to be equal to minus 3. Now, for the inequality, you must note that when you multiply or divide an inequality by a negative number, the sign actually reverses. So if the sign was strictly less than, it becomes strictly greater than, and vice versa. And if it's greater than or equal to, it becomes less than or equal to. Only when you divide or multiply by a negative number. It does not happen when you use a positive number. It remains the same when you multiply or divide by a positive number, but it reverses when you do that for a negative number. All right, so this will be equal to 2x minus 3 on 5 less than or equal to 4x minus 7. We equally cross multiply. Since the numbers are positive, we have no problem. That gives us 5 into 2x minus 3 to be less than or equal to 3 into 4x minus 7. We expand. Then bringing like terms together, we will have minus 2x to be less than or equal to 6. And now, note, we are going to divide both sides by negative 2. So what will happen to this sign? It will reverse, or will now be facing the other direction. Some people will not understand reverse, right? So this gives us x to be greater than or equal to 6 divided by minus 2, which is minus 3. Okay. Question number 7. Question 7, we have these are the type of questions that waste students' time. Yes, the type of questions waste time. However, let us see what's to be done here. So we have this particular figure, and we are being told that if you calculate the number of roofing sheets to be used to roof the house, if each roofing sheet is 3 meters by 1 meter, if the grab ends are not roofed. So this is grab end, this end like this means you should not consider this one. That's the A part, don't consider this end, and this end is the same the other way. So it means you are considering only this flat surface, which is like it's a rectangle of dimensions 10 by 4. Normally, there is a small typo in this question. It has a bit of it has an issue. So this 4, normally, this 4 should be here. Because if you consider that this 4 is not here, then there's going to be an issue. So this 4 is actually at this position here. So we have two of these faces. The total surface area of those two faces, excluding these ends, will be equal to the area of this rectangle times 2. So that gives us 4 times 10, since that's 2 of them times 2, and that gives us 80 squared meters. Then the area of one sheet is 3 meters by 1 meter, and that gives us 3 squared meters. The number of roofing sheets that we use will be equal to the total surface area of 80 divided by 3, and that gives us 26.67 sheets. Now the B part says that if the grab ends are included, so if the grab ends are included now, we need the height of this triangle here. We need the height of this triangle. And the height of this triangle can be calculated from Pythagoras, where we consider this side to be the hypotenuse, and from here to here, will be half of 7, which is 3.5. So the height will be equal to 4 squared hypotenuse squared minus the square of this other side. That gives us 1.936. So we can now get the area of these two faces. Since there are two of them, I call them 2A. Of these two faces will be equal to half base times height times 2, because there are two faces, and that gives us 13.936 squared meters. So the total surface area, if all these faces are included now, will be this 80 up here plus this 13.936 meters squared, and that gives us a total of 93.936. So dividing by 3, which is the area of one sheet, will give us 31.312 number of sheets. As an alternative solution, we can equally get the total surface area of these triangles using Heron's formula for area, where this side is 4, this one is 4, and this one is 7. And Heron's formula reads A should be equal to S into S minus A, S minus B, S minus C, where A, B, and C are the sides of that triangle, and S is A plus B plus C divided by 2. So this, using this formula, A is equal to B, which is 4, and S will be equal to 7.5. When you put in the formula and calculate, we have A to be equal to 3.9 for one face, and for two faces, that's 3.39 times 2 give us 6.78. And we observe that there is a slight difference. So observe that there is just a slight difference. Okay. All right. So now the next question reads, well, if P is equal to that, simplify P as a fraction in its lowest term. So here we just have to apply the laws of indices. And applying the law of indices, our P will be equal to 2 to the power minus 2 times minus 3. This one down becomes, when it gets up, becomes minus 3. The 3 to the power 3 remains the same. 5 to the power minus 3 times 3 here, times 3. Then there's a 5 to the power minus 6 down. So when we have to take this number up, it becomes plus 6. That's why you can see now be plus 6. And 7 to the power minus 5 times, this 7 to the power 2 times 3 is the same as 7 to the power 6, right? But when we now take this number up, it becomes negative. That's why we have it as negative here. So the next step gives us 2 to the power minus 5, 3 to the power 3, 5 to the power minus 3, 7 to the power minus 1. And the ones with the minus, you can send them below so that we can easily have our fraction. So we'll be left with just 3 to the power 3 above, 2 to the power 5, and 5 to the power minus 3 is 7 to the power 1. Note that when you move them downwards, the sign, the negative signs becomes positive because you are written as negative exponents. So when you simplify, there's nothing to cancel out. This number just gives us 27 on 28,000. So that's in the simplest form. Okay. Question 9. In a right angle triangle where x is an acute angle and cos x equals 5 on 13, find sine x. You can get the PDF of all of this correction from the link below. So recall that cot x is the same as 1 over tan x. So you can look for tan x and then you take 1 over that value. You will have your cot x. Let's start with sine x. So normally we actually use SOHCAHTOA so that as mnemonic, so that we don't forget these trigonometric ratios. And we can draw this triangle. We will have this is the angle here, x, and x cos x from here will be equal to adjacent of our hypotenuse, that is 5 on 13. So from here, our sine x will be equal to opposite of our hypotenuse, which is 12 on 13. Similarly, cot x from SOHCAHTOA is adjacent of our opposite. Toa means opposite of our adjacent, but now cot is the opposite of that, so it's adjacent of our opposite, and that gives us 5 on 12. Question 10. You are given the vectors p equals that, q equals that, and r equals that. Find p minus 2q. So you have to be very careful when you're writing in the exam. If you look here, you see that some of the signs are not on these vectors, like p, the sign is not there, q, the sign is not there, r, the sign is not there. But if you're writing, you must make sure that the signs are there, the vector signs are there, as you can see. P minus 2q should be equal to, they will not consider you because you have not put. Normally, the computer types and puts in bold when they use these small letters. You can see maybe the bold do not actually appear, but it's actually in bold whenever they type like this. So this will give us, this one, the P is 4 minus 1, this is it. So minus 2q, q is minus 3 minus 4 in matrix form, column matrix form. When we simplify, you'll have 10 and 7. Now, to find them, magnitude of P minus 2Q. So P minus 2Q, we already have it at 10, 7. So we can just use x component squared plus y component squared square root for the magnitude or the modulus. That's another name. But either call it magnitude or modulus. and this will give us the root of 149. You can further simplify your calculator. Now, the same we should find the value of the scalar u, that's in this vector r, for which the two vectors are parallel. Note that two vectors are parallel if one is a scalar multiple of the other. That means if you multiply one by a particular number, you have the other one. They are equally parallel if the tangents of their angles are the same, if tan A is equal to tan B. So for P minus 2Q, the tan will be equal to 7 on 10, and the tangents of R will be equal to mu on 5. So when you cross multiply, and mu will be equal to 3.5. Question 11, find the volume of the cone shown. What you have to note here is that we should be cautious not to use this slant height to calculate the volume of a cone. You have to use by this height, not the slant height. So from Pythagoras, you can get the slant height. And knowing that the volume of a cone is given by pi radius squared times height on 3, you can get our slant height from 25 squared minus 7 squared, that is hypotenuse squared minus this other side squared, and that gives us 24. So our volume will be equal to 22 on 7 times 7 squared times 24 on 3, and that gives us 1232 cubic units. This question looks very simple. It's actually simple, but you have to be very careful not to use this slant height, or you can call it some sort of hypotenuse. Don't use it. Question 12. The table below represents the performance of students in a mathematics test on 20. So you have on 20, 2 students scored 5, 3 students scored 7, and so on until 2 students had 20 on 20. Some have the 5 on 20 as usual. They'll always be there. Though our mission is to see that we cut down on this type of marks. So how many students wrote the test? Number of students who wrote the test should just be equal to the sum of all of these numbers here. Number of students who wrote the text should be equal to, you have actually to be equal to 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 6 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2. And that gives us a value of 30. So 30 students wrote this test. Then what's the probability that the student scores at least 15 marks for the test? At least 15 marks here means, all right, they ask for the mode. The modal mark is 10. If you look at all of these marks, which mark has the highest number of students? It's 14. Is it 14? No, it's 10. 10 has the highest number of students, which is 7. So the modal mark is not this 7, but it is not the score or the mark that has the highest number of students, which is 10. All right, the C part wants us to get the probability that the student that is chosen at random scores at least 15 marks for the test. So at least 15 marks, the probability will be equal to those who scored 15 or more. You have 2 students plus 3 plus 2, so on a total of 30 students. Note that probability actually means how many out of how many. So there are 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 2, that is how many students? 7 students out of how many? A total of 30 students. That's the probability. When you calculate probability, know that your answer should never be more than 1. So this answer is correct because no more than 1. All right, figure 13 shows this figure, and the area of the square is that. Calculate the length of one side of the square. Well, we know very well that the side of a square is equal to the square root of the area. So side will be equal to the square root of the area, and that gives us a value of 35 centimeters. Now calculate the radius of this circle. So to get the radius of this circle, this is a cyclic quadrilateral. So you have to first of all calculate the diameter. Note, if you look at this circle carefully, it's that this square that is inside, from this point to this point, is the same as the diameter. And since this side is equal to this side, which is 35, we can get this diameter. This diameter is the same as the hypotenuse when you divide this square into two parts. That's 2 equal parts. So we can look at the diameter here. When we get the diameter, we divide by 2, we'll have the radius of this circle. So this gives us 35 root 2, and the radius will be giving us a value of 35 root 2 divided by 2, which is that. You can simplify with the calculator further. Question 14. Find the midpoint of the line that, given that A equals that and B equals that. So the midpoint of a line, as we know, just means the middle. And the midpoint of the line is given by the average of the I components. That's 4 plus minus 6 divided by 2, comma, the average of the Y components, minus 7 plus minus 2, this minus 7 plus minus 2 on 2, that is giving us, this is minus 2 of this. So this gives us minus 5, comma, minus 4.5. All right, I have to cover this part here, minus 4.5. And then the equation of a line is actually given by y equals m into x minus x1 plus y1, where we can either consider our x1 and y1 to be minus 4, minus 7, or we can take minus 6, minus 2. So, but what is m? M is the gradient. And how do you calculate the gradient? It's change in y over change in x. So it's change in y, not change in x over change in y, but change in y over change in x. So we have minus 2 minus 7, that's change in minus 7, that's change in y, over change in x. Since I started with minus 2 from this set, I must also begin with the x from this set. So over minus 6 minus minus 4, that gives us minus 5 and 2. Make sure that if you start with the y from here, then you must start the x from here. If you start the y from here, you must start with the y2 from here. So our equation now, y becomes minus 5 on 2 into x minus minus 4 plus minus 7. And when you simplify, we have minus 5 on 2x minus 17. When you further simplify. All right, question number 15. A woman sold 14 cartons of fish for 168,000. What is the selling price of one carton? So first thing here is to get the selling price for one carton and then find the total cost price for the 14 cartons so that you can, in the B part, get a total gain. So selling price of one carton will be equal to 168,000 divided by how many? Divided by 14. That gives us a value of 12,000. So the total cost price for the 14 cartons, because we need to get the gain, total cost price of the 14 cartons will be 14 times 10,500, since one carton costs 10,500. And this gives us a value of 147,000 francs. 147,000 francs. So how do we get her gain now? Her gain will be given by total selling price minus total cost price. And a total selling price is 168,000 minus 147,000. And what does that give? That gives us 21,000 francs. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and look at the section B of this paper. I have been Dr. Miles, your host. And what are some of the issues that you have? You can move to our blog, www.gcemathspanel.blogspot.com, and you choose to join one of our WhatsApp groups as prepared students. Students are not coming to the WhatsApp group as spectators. They are coming there to ask questions which they have and to answer. Equally, don't forget to visit our online classes on Facebook and on YouTube. And our blog has a very important page, which is a preparation page. It's completely free. There is no registration. You just have to move to the blog and then you check for preparations, online preparation, and you see the classes have been arranged year by year. Some of the pages have not been completed because we're waiting on technicians. Actually, there's much there. And don't forget that every February to May, we have what we call GCE Math Panel Online Awards, which when you answer those questions online and you win, you can earn some cash for yourself. Thank you so much. Welcome to GCE Math Panel. Stay tuned. Please don't forget to share with friends and encourage others to encourage us. Bye bye. Dedicated to my mom, and blessed be God forever. GCE Math Panel Technical.